Defence has become a key election battleground after the coalition unveiled details of its long-awaited plan to boost the defence spending by an extra $21 billion over the next 5 years. That will lift the total defence spend to 2.5% of the GDP by 2030. Labor has an 8-year plan to raise defence spending to 2.3% of GDP by 2033.
The coalition is investing more into defence, a record amount of money, and we're keeping our country safe doing so.
There is no explanation of how they're paying for this, nor really is there any explanation of what the money is being spent on.
Well, Jennifer Parker is a maritime security expert and she's here to talk to us about those big defence dollars. Jen, both parties seem to agree that we're not spending enough. So just how much should we actually be spending on defence?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. Look, it'd be wonderful if I could tell you an exact figure. I can't, but what I would say is this. We often talk about defence spending as a percentage of gross domestic product. Really, defence is a percentage of the economy. Throughout the Cold War, we spent about 2.7% of our economy, of GDP, on defence. Now we're spending about 2.03% this financial year, next financial year to go to 2.05%. The question really is, does our Defence Force have the capabilities they need to respond to the changing strategic circumstance? And if you ask that question, the answer is no. And why is it no? Because we're not putting enough money into defence.
How likely is war? Not like, no, like the concept of war.
He's a real history buff.
Yeah. Like, what would happen if we didn't have any defence, for example? I know the purpose is not to use it. It's kind of like a threat, like one of those guard dog beware signs. But, like, are we ever worried about ever having to go to war?
Well, I think the guard dog beware sign is a really good analogy.
Thank you.
You're right.
Thank you.
It's great. You're a defence expert. Investing in defence is kind of like the insurance policy, right? A strategy of deterrence is, hey, if we bolster our capability, you'll think you won't want to interfere with us and there's no war. The problem is the world is changing and states are resorting to the use of force. So we know that China has built up one of the largest militaries in the world. They certainly have the largest naval capability in the world. They're building up their nuclear missiles. And they have said that we won't rule out taking Taiwan by force. That would actually be, straight away, an Indo-Pacific-wide conflict. How likely is that? I'm not going to put a figure on that, but what I would say is war is not inevitable in the region. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but things are not trending in the right direction.
Jennifer, I want to let's play some pretend here, okay? You are now in charge of defence. Australia's defence, you're in charge of it.
Right.
How much are you spending?
Wow. Well, thank you for the promotion.
You are welcome. I have a lot of power.
Great. Look, the opposition announced today that they would get there in the next 10 years under their plan. Under the current defence spending outlined by our current government, will be to about 2.33% in 10 years, maybe 2.4%. I'd have to say that that is unlikely to be enough because when I look at the gaps across our capability, I don't know how we address that without more money, and that's probably about 3% of GDP.
Unfortunately, Jen, the promotion means you are the Prime Minister of the country, so you have to think about things other than defence.
Yep.
So that's a lot of money that you've got to find for that. And I guess this is the government's argument at the moment. Where are you taking it from?
This is where we have to have a national conversation about how the region is changing, what that means for the threat to Australia. And that is not a threat of an invasion of Australia, but it is a threat of interdiction of supply lines. It is a potential, if things really deteriorated, a threat of missile attacks. And the fact that we need to deal with preparing for that now. Where exactly that comes from, look, a lot of people who are economists have said, potentially it is reforming our tax regime. I know that is a terrible thing to say in an election campaign, and we're all avoiding it. Potentially it is looking at issues of social security. Look, I don't have the answer to where it is coming from, but what I can say is this. If we avoid investing in defence, and if the region continues to trend in the direction that we are seeing, and we don't invest in defence, we are setting ourselves up for a significant crisis that will impact our security and will certainly impact our economy.
Jennifer, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.